Our exit interview for Erik Brännström, the most polarizing figure on the Ottawa Senators roster. Pills, you think that's fair to say?
No, no, I think that was the discussion of, 2019, 2020, and maybe even 2021. But these days, I would not say he's the most polarizing player on the roster. I wouldn't even say he's the most polarizing player on the decor roster.
Wow. Okay. Because there's still a
I
lot
don't
of
even think he's that polarizing at all anymore.
really.
Yeah.
Because I disagree with that. I think there's people who think that Erik Brännström's an AHL defenseman or a guy who can't play on a playoff team. And there's others who see him at the end of every season when Thomas Chabot has his yearly injury, where they're like, wow, this guy can move pucks. He's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL.
I think people that think he's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL need a bit of a reality check, unfortunately. Look, I was a brand stand. I still like Erik Brännström, but I think it's time to get real about him. He's 24. We've seen a good sample size of him in the NHL. He's played, Erik Brännström has played 266 NHL games. Like, for people to say, we're not sure about what we have from him yet, I don't buy that anymore. I think Erik Brännström has shown what he is, which is a fine defenseman. But just with the way the Ottawa Senators are set up, unless Erik Brännström and Thomas Chabot were an elite pair together, I don't think the people that have Erik Brännström in a top 4 role are in the right here. I'm leaning more towards either he's a bottom pair guy or it may be time to move on from him to shake things up in the decor a bit here.
266 games is tied for 47th in franchise histories. 2 games away from tying our good pal, Christoph Schubert.
Shuby.
Erik Brännström just played his 24-year-old season for the Ottawa Senators, 76 games, which is super impressive considering this guy was stretchered off the ice early in the season on Long Island after taking a awkward hit from Cal Clutterbuck. Contributed 3 goals, gotta say, career high 3 goals, 17 assists, good for 20 points, a plus player on this team, +5, and an expected goals percentage at 5-on-5 of 51.6%. So offensively has his best year of his career, eclipsing last year's total by 2 points. Still, the penalty minutes, man, like 36 penalty minutes. That's 18 minor penalties for Erik Brännström throughout the season. And we often see them happen right in front of his own net where he's outsized, outmuscled. These big forwards in the Atlantic Division are just kind of feasting on that Brännström and JBD pair. And as a penalty killer, I think is kind of where he's surprised or impressed me the most. But I don't know if that's a good thing for the team or if it's like, okay, he's doing a fine job, but he's still not necessarily the prototypical big. Like, look at the playoffs right now. Every team just has monsters back there that can just shut things down. And that's where I worry that he's caught in this in between where, yeah, he can be an effective player, but not every single night at the NHL level.
Well, and Ross, it just feels like the Ottawa Senators can't decide what they want from him, right? When he was brought in the Mark Stone trade, everybody thought this is a puck-moving defenseman that's going to put up points. He's, we even said this, Ross, when he was down in Belleville, when the puck was on his stick, he could do anything with it. Like, he was dancing around. So you start thinking, all right, this is going to be a power play specialist. He's going to put up major points. And then that wasn't really converting to the NHL. Sure, in the AHL, he was having that success, but in the NHL, he found it hard to put up those points. So it seemed like then the Ottawa Senators said, okay, you're not going to be a full offenseman. We got to get some defense in your game. But we don't think you can really get any offense. So let's really focus fully on making you a defensive guy, which for a puck-moving defenseman, that's like 5'8" or whatever he is. I'm looking at it now. 5'10". Sorry, Branny took 2 inches off there.
Rude.
It's very hard for you to be a physical presence defensively. Like, you see him boxing out in front, and I'll give full credit. He's working out there. He's doing his best. I'm not about to say he's dogging it. I'm not saying, he's one of those offensive defensemen that doesn't want to get dirty and get in the hard areas. That's not true at all. I give Erik Brännström full credit for being as physical and getting in the mix as much as he can. But in the NHL, you're just limited when you're 185 pounds and 5'10". That's just a matter of fact. And he can't go full defense. He can't go full offense. They got to find some way to kind of meet in the middle. And I feel like they haven't found that sweet spot yet. Erik Brännström is a fine defenseman. But if this decor is going to advance and move on and become better, unfortunately, Ross, I hate to say it, but I'm starting to join the Mark Mathot side of this argument where it's like, I don't know how the Ottawa Senators are going to win when they're relying on Erik Brännström as much as they are.
So that's a decision that Steve Staios is going to have to make this summer then, because frankly, they can't run back the same decor. But how many guys realistically can you interchange in one offseason? The beauty of Erik Brännström, who made $2 million last season on a 1-year deal, is that he's still an RFA. Yep. So he still has no rights. He has arbitration rights, and maybe that's a route they go down. How I would pay to be in the room for that arbitration hearing from both sides.
Yeah,
I think it's going to make a great case study. But like, I watched Samuel Girard very closely this series, Colorado Avalanche, and they're both undersized defensemen. But what I'd say is that for an undersized defenseman, and Erik Brännström, again, this guy works. And I have a ton of respect for how he's willing to battle, whether it's in the boards behind the net. He gives up size in every single fight, but he's always in the fight. He's willing. It's more than half the battle is being in it.
And he gets up when he gets rocked, Ross. We've seen Erik Brännström get rocked a bunch, other than that, obviously, that awkward hit with Clutterbuck. But
yeah,
he's not staying down or being small when he gets hit. He gets right back up.
Yeah, and he's gotten better at avoiding the big hit, because for a couple of years, it was like we were on watch for him. Like, okay, make sure there's an ambulance in the rink, because he's taking some serious contact. But with Samuel Girard, he's so much more dynamic than Brännström. Like, when he gets the puck, he's able to like shake, shimmy 3 guys, bang, he's out of the zone. I just feel like Branny doesn't really have that element, which is fine. But if he's gonna accelerate to the next level as an offensive defenseman, I think he's gonna need to do that. Because if you see like, oh, Erik Brännström's played 266 games, like, oh, then he had to have figured it out offensively a little bit. And it's like, no, he's actually getting outscored at even strength by like every defenseman on the team. That's where it's like, it's almost confusing to me, Pilsy, because it shouldn't be the case. He's talented, there's no doubt, but like, he and Thomas Chabot, we just talked about, they have the same amount of even strength points this season, and Chabot played 25 less games.
Yeah, and that's just it. And I don't know, like, part of me, Ross, thinks they're just going to run it to arbitration and do a 1-year arbitration deal just to kind of keep things going, and then evaluate as the season goes on, or maybe try to move him as a part of a trade or at the deadline or something. I don't even know what to do with Erik Brännström, unfortunately, but I just think they have to. He feels like a big part of that decor from when he was brought here to now that just didn't have any success. And I'm not putting that on Branny. I'm not labeling him as the blame for that, but it just feels like that 5-year era we need to move on from. We need to be doing something different. And that's an area where you can do that. Now, I will maintain Erik Brännström is a nice defenseman to have in your organization, though. Like, my versatility argument for Branny still rings true. He can play on the power play. He's been killing penalties. He can play on a bottom pair. For a short sample size, he can play in the top 4 as well. And he can play left or right side. So, like, having a guy like that, when you know there's going to be injuries, especially a guy like Thomas Chabot, who unfortunately has had a lot of injuries, having a guy like Branny that you can plug and play wherever to make up for injured players is nice to have. But yeah, I think the Erik Brännström Ottawa Senators era is going to come to a close soon here too. And Ross, the thing too, Erik Brännström was a Pierre Dorion guy. He pretty much put his reputation on the line with the Mark Stone Erik Brännström trade.
The next thing I was going to say was credit to us. We just got through a whole Erik Brännström segment without bringing up how they got him.
Yeah, whoops, that's my bad. But like, Pierre Dorion wanted Erik Brännström to work out, whereas Steve Staios there's
No,
no loyalty there or no kind of reputation on the line with this player. So
yeah, I'd
we'll
be
see.
looking at a draft day trade to a team like, I mean, San Jose is the easy one because they're obviously rebuilding and don't have any real puck movers. I know they traded for Kalen Addison last year. He's solid, but I think that they could. I think Brandy would do well there too. I think it would be kind of a win-win. But what are you going to get? A 4th-round pick for him, 5th-round pick. Not sure what the real draw is there. So it's part of kind of reshaking the decor and how interesting this offseason is going to be from the Ottawa Senators. But let us know in the comments what you think of Erik Brännström's season with the Ottawa Senators.